Hello to everyone. I'm so happy that you decided to take advantage and view the recording that we have made through Study Abroad for our Friends program. My name is Pat Mouye, and I am the Study Abroad Coordinator, the Acting Program Director at this time. I do want to share with you today about the programs that we offer through our faculty-led programs. But I'm also, the main focus today is going to be upon our Friends program. And our Friends faculty have so graciously decided to join me today in this recording to share this information with you as students. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to ask that each of our faculty members take just a few minutes to introduce themselves and let you know a little bit about themselves, their departments, their study abroad experiences, that type of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Allison Lee. If you could share, Dr. Allison Lee, share some information about yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pat. So hello, I am Dr. Allison Lee. I am an assistant professor of art history in the Department of Visual Arts here at UL. And I've traveled a great deal in my life, both for research and for fun. And I taught the Paris program in the summer of 2019. Was hoping to go last year, but of course, COVID made it not possible to go. So here I am again, hoping to recruit some of you students to have a blast with me and these other professors in Paris.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Lee. So we're going to go ahead, Dr. Maria Seeger, if you don't mind, share a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Pat. Hi, I'm Dr. Maria Seeger, and I'm an assistant professor of English at UL, where I teach and research US and African American literature, film, and culture. I studied abroad as an undergraduate at New College at the University of Oxford, and it was one of the best experiences I had as an undergraduate. I made many weekend visits under the tunnel to Paris, and so I'm really looking forward to taking students interested in film and culture and literature to Paris this coming summer.
Thank you so much. And now we have Ms. Sarah Young.
Hi, my name is Sarah Young. I am an associate professor in the School of Architecture and Design. I teach mostly the general design classes, but I'm also a practicing architect, and I'm looking very much forward to going to Paris and being inspired by all the great architecture and urban design there is to offer there. They have everything you can imagine in Paris, and I'm really looking forward to having a bunch of students to go and share that with. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And Dr. Tricia Tomplay from nursing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Tomplay. I'm an associate professor of nursing in the College of Nursing and Allied Health Sciences. I offer 2 courses for study abroad, and this is my second time going. The courses I offer are History of Healthcare and European Health Cultures and Sexuality, where we investigate, just people. We watch people, we talk to people, we eat with people, we watch TV, we learn about their culture through inclusive activities. With History of Healthcare, we're investigating art history and museums, and Europe offers, especially Paris, offers lots of experiences with regard to the history of Marie Curie and the history of wartime healthcare and things like that. So it's an exciting place to immerse yourselves in these topics. So I look forward to seeing you guys with me in Paris.
Awesome. And Dr. Tomplay, would you mind just sharing with them a little bit about your experience? Because I know that you've taught abroad before.
Yes, thank you. I did spend 1 year in 2018 in Florence, Italy, with similar courses, but more geared toward Florence's offerings with regard to those topics. At that time, we toured wineries and olive oil farms, and just kind of delved into the Mediterranean diet as well. So it was a good experience there as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, I'm going to ask Dr. Lee. She's a little more tech savvy than me, so I'm asking her to assist me today. So we're going to just share with you a brief slide presentation that we've prepared to share this information with you. Just to give you a little brief history about our UL Lafayette Study Abroad programs. The program itself has been in existence since the summer of 1986. And it began so wonderfully with UL France as our flagship program. And since then, we've expanded to other programs as well. I've been in study abroad now for about 16, 17 years, so I've had an opportunity to work with some phenomenal faculty. And I just have to share with you, as students, if parents are viewing this video, or our general public, it's so important for you to know that for these programs to run, it really takes the passion and the dedication and the interest and the desire from phenomenal faculty on our campus, because they want to share these phenomenal experiences with you as students. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Dr. Lee to go to the next slide. We do currently have 6 programs that are led by our faculty here on campus. 4 of them have been in place for several years now, and those are our first 4 that are listed here on the screen: Costa Rica, England, France, and Italy. And then we do have 2 new programs that will begin in the summer of 2022. And that's going to be in Tokyo, Japan, as well as in Rabat, Morocco. But I will tell you that even though today's, the video, the recording that you are viewing today is predominantly about France, we'll have on the website all of the videos from all of the other locations as well. So it's going to give you an opportunity to see what all of the different faculty members have to share about our locations. So if we go on to the next screen. Okay, so here we have information about the Paris program itself. It usually does take place from May through June each year, usually around mid to late May up until the end of June, maybe early July. The cost is approximately $6,000 right now, and there are some state fees that are required to be paid too, but those are usually about $300, and those go straight to the state. I don't know the exact cost at this time because I'm still working on that with the vendors that we work with. But this screen I wanted to share with you because it gives you a little bit of insight about the program itself, that it is a 6-week program, that you can earn up to 9 hours. You take 2 courses with our faculty, and that's what we're going to share in just a minute. And then there's a 3rd course that is offered, that it's a humanities course, which is a French language and culture course. And that course is meant to assist you while you are there, give you insight to basic terminology, basic phrases to be able to communicate while there, a little bit of information about the culture. So it's meant to assist you, while you're there and in your travels there. Students are housed in apartments, and it's usually anywhere from 2 to 4 students per apartment. And sometimes it might be a little more depending upon the size of the apartments. Usually it's 2 students per room. So those are decided as we know how many students are going to be going on the program itself. I've shared with you here a little bit about the historic sites that you're going to visit. I'm not going to go into too much detail because our faculty will be covering that soon with you. And it does include an hour-long cruise as well. That's a part of the program for you too. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask that we continue with the slides. And I'm going to ask Ms. Sarah Young, since she's the first one that's listed on here from Architecture and Design. And I'm going to ask that she share with you a little bit about the synopsis of her courses. What will it entail? Share some of the sites that the students will be visiting. What will take place in the courses, what should they expect, what they should prepare for, that type of thing. So Ms. Young, if you could share that information with us.
Yes. Yes, I'm teaching 2 classes in Paris, and it's really suggested that you take the 2 of them together because we will be basically getting up and getting out there in the morning and staying out all day, just seeing as much as we can see. So one of the classes is Paris as the Architectural Paris is the historical hinge, which is all about looking at neoclassical architecture and how it changed from like kind of the ancient world of architecture and really started to open up opportunities for modernism and contemporary design. And really Paris is like the epicenter of that in Europe. And what we're going to be doing in that class is really just walking around to all these sites and keeping a sketchbook and just sketching all day. If you're someone who is not comfortable with sketching, this is an excellent opportunity for you to become very comfortable with it very quickly. You're going to learn how to do it on the trip. So don't worry if you don't know how to draw. That's the whole goal, is that we're going to teach you how. So one of the classes is really focused on sketching. The other is focused on reading some historical texts about all these places that we'll be visiting. So we'll do a reading. We will visit the actual place that it has been written about. So we'll be, for example, reading Victor Hugo and then going to Notre Dame and talking about Victor Hugo's writings on Notre Dame in place. And that's really, so those classes really are very connected to each other, because you'll also be drawing the Notre Dame Cathedral while you're there, which should be very interesting because it's under construction right now. After the big fire. So basically these classes are really tied together, and we'll be visiting churches, cathedrals, libraries, museums, houses, bridges, all the great streets in Paris, and really just analyzing them and seeing what inspiration we can bring back to our own work if you're a creative person, or just learning more about architecture and design in general if you are not someone who is, practicing the arts. So anyway, yeah, there'll be some sketching, reading, but not too much reading. We'll have a reader that will give you, you don't have to buy a bunch of textbooks or anything. We'll have a reader. And there will be one paper that you will write at the end, but that's whenever you get home. So you won't have to worry about that during the trip. We're also going to use Instagram to share images and really think about how photography can be a part of like this creative research that we'll be doing. Yeah, so I think, is there anything, do you guys think there's anything I missed?
Well, if you don't mind, I know you mentioned about students that might not necessarily be talented in drawing and sketching.
Yeah.
So your courses, let's say you have a student who's not an architecture design major, would they be eligible to take this course?
Absolutely, absolutely. You are encouraged. We would love to have your perspective. Wherever you're coming from, we would love for you to join us and take part in these architectural classes. Or really, we're going to be looking at design in general. It's not just architecture that we're going to be looking at, but yeah, absolutely. You are welcome, and we would love to have you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, so now we're going to go to our English professor, Dr. Maria Seeger. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your last name right. If I mispronounced it, I apologize.
No, that's exactly right. And that also cues me to say I'm about to say a bunch of French words that I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce. So apologies in advance. Both of the courses that I'm teaching in Paris are part of the general education core curriculum for literature. And English 212 in particular fulfills a lot of the literature requirements for all majors across the College of Liberal Arts. So if you're looking for courses that may fit into your plan of study, not just as electives, but actually as fulfilling requirements, check these two out with your advisor. They may be good fits for you. In the first course, Americans in Paris, we'll be thinking about American writers who lived and wrote abroad in Paris across the 20th and 21st century. So from roughly the 1920s till right now. So we'll be thinking about high modernists like William Faulkner and Gertrude Stein, but also mid-century Black novelists like James Baldwin and Richard Wright, all the way up to contemporary intellectuals like Ta-Nehisi Coates. And some of the key questions we'll be thinking about: how do expat Americans frame the pleasures of Paris alongside the experience of being a cultural outsider? And because we're reading so many Black authors, we'll think about what the experience of being Black abroad means for thinking about life in Paris, but also how that might contrast or fall in line with life in the United States, particularly with regard to racism. We'll think about how expat Americans cultivate a sense of personal identity and literary experimentation in a new and unfamiliar environment. And we'll think about what Americans writing in Paris reveals about Paris and about the United States, as you are also having new and unfamiliar experiences and thinking about your life in Paris and how that compares to your life here in South Louisiana. In terms of cultural site visits, we'll do a lot of exploring around the city of Paris. We'll take you to some of the hubs of modernist art. So we'll think about literary modernism alongside visual art, music that is also produced as part of this modernist movement at the Picasso Museum, at the Louvre, and also in Montmartre, which is an important site for offshoots of jazz music coming out of Harlem in the 1920s. And we'll also try to replicate some of the experiences that are depicted in our texts and the ways in which our texts were written, the places in which they were written, by visiting some famous cafes and at which James Baldwin wrote novels, in which he also had a major falling out with Richard Wright, and in the Luxembourg Gardens also, for example, an important site to see and be seen for our authors. In Paris on Screen, if you're a film buff or want to become a film buff, we'll be thinking about comedies and dramas from roughly the 1950s to the present, US films that depict Paris as an important part of the plot of the film. So we'll start with Audrey Hepburn's classic romantic comedies. If you're a fan of old films, you'll love those. And we'll move into contemporary films that depict Paris as a kind of space for romance, for food, where Paris is a character in the film. So think about films like Moulin Rouge, Ratatouille, you may have seen Julie and Julia, films like this. We'll think about how these films contribute to what we imagined Paris to be like before we arrived there. And then once we sort of see the behind the scenes locations at which these films were shot, we'll think about how seeing the behind the scenes changes our impression of how the film told us Paris would be. And we'll look at not only the major Paris landmarks that Pat shared with us on the last slide, but we'll also look at some of the smaller sites in which famous film scenes were filmed, things like bookstores and bridges, bistros and public squares. I'll take you to the Cinematique Française, which is a film archive that has early films and ephemera in which we can contextualize the process of filmmaking and the way films were advertised. And then hopefully we'll have some culturally immersive experiences, such as taking a French cooking class in which we can learn what the process of depicting the animation in Ratatouille or the actual cooking process of Julie and Julia might have actually looked like. So I'll leave it there for now, but we're so excited about both of these classes.
That was awesome. Thank you so very much for sharing that with us. So now we're going to move on to nursing. Dr. Tompley, I know you mentioned a little bit of it briefly or earlier, but if you want to go into a little more depth, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I wanted to apologize because I get so excited over my courses that I just want to talk about them all the time.
As long as you're talking about your courses, I'm a happy camper.
Right. And Dr. Seeger, I want to sign up for your courses. They sound fantastic. So again, history of healthcare, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to delve into portrayals of healthcare through art. We're going to look at the life of Vincent van Gogh and how his life was affected by health issues and ultimately ended because of health issues. And we'll talk about the speculation in regards to that. You know, there's many different avenues and aspects of art that depict health. And, you know, it's sort of an introspective analysis as well, how that art makes you feel as a nursing student. And, you know, it's just a fun kind of left brain, right brain sort of course. So to get you kind of get your brain, your hemispheres connecting and you know, just investigating history, health, art. It's just an interesting topic to me. In terms of the sexuality, health, and healthcare course, that's sort of a mishmash of a lot of different things that we're looking at. Again, we're going to look at art. We're going to watch TV, investigate magazines and advertisements. We'll talk to pharmacists in central Paris and see what medications are available over the counter versus how they're available here in America, whether they're prescription or over the counter here. It's pretty interesting, the differences that healthcare offers in Europe versus over here in America. So it's a pretty interesting examination. We'll talk to people. You'll have interviews with people to see what their take is on access to care, on folk remedies as well. What are some of the differences? And we'll investigate and explore our own cultural beliefs about healthcare and compare them to what we're investigating and witnessing in Paris as well. We'll learn about some herbal remedies that are common in France and throughout Europe. And we'll delve into sexuality as well. Paris is the city of love, after all. So we do a lot of people watching for interactions, healthy, sexual interactions and gender expression, gender identity. So we kind of touch on a broad base of healthcare related topics in that course. And it's a fun 6 weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Tonkley. So now we move on to our visual arts professor, Dr. Allison Lee.
All right, so I hope it's okay. I stopped sharing the screen a little bit ago. I thought it might be more interesting to see our faces a little bit.
I think that's
share
great.
it again. Okay. So the two courses that I'm teaching, Visual Arts 309 and 321, are actually both part of the curriculum if you are a visual arts major, but they can count as electives if you have room in your particular curriculum. There are no prerequisites for these classes. You don't need to know anything about art history. You can dive right in and essentially enjoy mostly going to museums and cultural sites with me. There will be moments when all of our groups will come together. At least last time I led the tour of the Louvre, which I think was a lot of fun for everybody. And there is basically nothing I love more than talking in museums in front of works of art and explaining their meaning in terms of texts, in terms of design, in terms of healthcare and sexuality. So the first course is called Poetry, Philosophy, Print, and Novel. And I conceive of this as a real interdisciplinary course, essentially about Paris on paper. So I'll bring together what writers have said about Paris in philosophical texts, in poetry, in novels. We'll read bits of lots of different things. There'll be a reader similar to Sarah Young's course. But then we'll bring these together with visual images on paper, which don't tend to get talked about a lot in art history. So we'll look at drawings, we'll look at prints, we'll look at photographs, a lot of this media that there are often really special temporary exhibitions going on in Paris that we can see kind of once in a lifetime only chances in terms of when we're there. The other class is slightly more broad. It's called Art in Paris, Envisioning the Modern World. And that's all about thinking of Paris as a site where modernism was born in many ways, in film, in architecture and design, in all these different fields. But thinking about that from a historical standpoint, going really quite far back in Paris's history. It's a very, very old city, and tracing it through the various sites and places as it develops mostly in the 19th century, but then of course into this postmodern 20th century. So we will go to a ton of places, museums that are probably familiar to you, like the Louvre, which has one of the most encyclopedic collections in the world. We'll go to the Musée d'Orsay, which is famous for its 19th century collection of Impressionist works in particular. So the Van Goghs that Trisha was talking about, the Monets, the Renoirs, they're all there. We'll go to the Contemporary Art Museum, the Centre Pompidou, which has some amazing works by the abstract expressionists and lots of photography, surrealist works by Dali, Warhol, all those guys are collected there. And we'll go to some small museums you probably have never heard of, house museums, the museums of individual writers, the Musée Jacques Marandré, all sorts of places that I will put on your radar. We will also make a trip to Monet's Water Lily Gardens in Giverny, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I partly teach this just because I want to go as often as possible to see these spectacular gardens. In terms of the format of the day, I usually ask students to meet me around 10 a.m., sometimes a little bit earlier. But we do tend to meet and stay out most of the day. We get lunch somewhere in there. Sometimes I'll ask you to bring a lunch, but we mostly spend all day at museums and at these sites. And I'll sometimes ask you to meet first in a garden with me, of which there are many in Paris, and we'll discuss some of the texts before we go in to look at whatever it is we're investigating that day. You'll need to generally bring a journal or a sketchbook, similar to what Sarah was describing. Sketching is not required in my courses. It's much more sort of form of note-taking than it is helping you become a better artist. Camera is highly recommended. We talk about that in the information sessions if you sign up for the actual classes. And I see part of my job in study abroad is to teach you how to be at museums all day. And that requires a certain amount of prep. It requires a certain amount of stamina and planning and all sorts of things, but I will teach you how to live that life if you're interested in it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. My next question, some of you have kind of answered it a little bit, but you can always go in a little more depth if you want, or if you feel like you've covered it already, not a big deal. You've shared with them what your courses are going to be and what they should expect and the places that they're going to visit and see. But to give them maybe a little bit more of a personal perspective about, what might be expected of them in relation to, class meetings, time away. Will there be night work? Will there be weekend activities that they're going to be required to be a part of? How much free time will they have? What will be expected of them academically in reference to grades, like assignments, exams, those types of things. So if y'all could cover that aspect, like I said, I know some of you touched on that a little bit, but we want to make sure that our students know, what is it that's going to be expected of them, on these types of programs. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to Ms. Young in architecture and design, if you don't mind sharing some of that.
Yeah, sure. For our sketchbook class, really there shouldn't be any homework for that class, right? Because you're sketching on site while you're there. The expectation that I have for my students is that you try to fill up 3 pages with different kinds of drawings. They don't all have to be like perfect drawings or finished drawings. They're really just a tool for you to kind of analyze and observe your surroundings. And so, so basically you'll need to kind of keep up roughly 3 pages of kind of drawings per day, right? And we'll visit many places and have plenty of time to kind of sit and sketch. If you want to continue drawing afterwards, I'm not stopping you, but there shouldn't be any homework for that class. The other class is for the reading and kind of discussion class. You will have your reading assignments. You will have your reader ahead of time. You can complete those readings ahead of time and kind of review your notes if you want before you go. So you'll have all your evenings free, or you can finish them the day before. You will also, I'm going to ask that students research about 5 sites and give like a very, very brief, like 3-minute oral presentation. You can have your notes in your sketchbook with you, and just when we get to, let's say, the Le Corbusier's house, or like Maison de Verre or something, that you would just pull that out and give your classmates a short overview of what we're going to see there and what the significance of that site. But really, we'll be doing our discussions in person. I'll ask that you maybe just take a few notes, like for 15 minutes afterwards, just have a minute to just reflect on what we talked about. And that will be basically the source material that you can use later whenever you're figuring out what kind of paper you want to write, which is it's going to be very open, and you'll have the ability to pick that topic. I can help you refine kind of what you want to write about. But again, that final paper will not be until we return from Paris. As far as the schedule, I really want to make sure that we maximize our time. There is so much to see. We definitely want to probably getting up and out and about by around 8:30 or 9 in the morning, and we'll stay out probably until about 5. You'll have every night free. We might end a little early some days, but I try not to keep you longer than we have to. I think the schedule goes, and Pat, tell me if I'm wrong. It'll be Monday through Thursday all day, and then Fridays will be a half day.
And absolutely. And that's something that you all as faculty will discuss based on, how many students are, a part of the program and how things work. But the most important thing is you having the time that you need to cover all of the material, contact hours, those types of things.
Right, exactly. And so for our class, it'll pretty much be a half day on Friday morning, and then you'll have a little bit of a jump on the weekend if you want to go to those side trips out to other places. Yeah, I think that covers it.
Awesome, super, thank you. Dr. Seeger, if you could share a little bit again about, what should they expect, and what are class assignments going to be like, their schedule, that type of thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. As much as possible, I think it's probably true of all four of us, we'll try to have class in and around the city at the sites in which our writers and filmmakers visited and depicted in their works. So a typical day might consist of getting up, going to a park, finding a shady spot, having a discussion of the text that you read for that day. You might have read 15 or 20 pages for Americans in Paris. You might have watched a half an hour of a Paris on screen film that was assigned. So we'll take some time to discuss your impressions of those texts. We might take a break for lunch at a local cafe, or grab a sandwich to go and stroll around the city, taking in some sights. And then in the afternoon, perhaps visiting a cultural site of some kind that enhances our understanding of the text that we're assigned for that day. So it might be going to a museum. It might also be browsing a local market, or listening to a musical performance, whatever is sort of striking us that day as being relevant. So in that case, you'll want to bring a notebook and a pencil. A light laptop might also work, but we probably won't have access to outlets all the time. So old school paper and pencil is what I would recommend. Hard copies of the reading material are always recommended. And so we'll have a reader of some kind. Water is always recommended. Sunglasses, comfortable walking shoes, layers. We'll be getting our steps in for sure. Generally, we won't meet at night or on weekends unless there's some sort of cultural activity that requires that kind of timing, and we'll decide that together as a class. I want to emphasize that you'll have plenty of time to complete work independently. Part of the work of our class is to view our texts through the lens of being cultural outsiders to Paris. And you must have experiences of being cultural outsiders and impressions of Paris in order to develop that lens. So when you think you're not working for the class, you actually will be working for the class without knowing it. And I want to really take advantage of that. In terms of the course components, there are 3 components to both classes. The first and most important is immersive participation and curiosity. The second is a series of 2 essays that will be about 1,000 words. That's about 3 to 4 pages. And I'm open to thinking about the genre of those essays. They need not necessarily be analytical. And the third is a midterm exam. That will cover key course concepts and sort of give us a shared vocabulary with which to examine the text assigned in the second half of the course.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Seeger. Dr. Tomplay, if you could share a little information.
Yeah, so for my courses, again, it is immersive. It's full participation and active inquisition, just as Dr. Seeger said. We will be spending a lot of time in museums. I do have plans for assignments for students to come prepared for 5-minute oral presentations as well, on either a painting, a person, a various topic that applies to something that we are seeing that day. And you'll have approximately, for history of healthcare at least, approximately 3 of those assignments in the 6 weeks. So in regards to history of healthcare, that is a couple of hours during the daytime hours, during which museums would be open. And so, that course is very much immersive in terms of what the sites will offer us. For healthcare, Sexuality, Health, and Cultures in Europe, that's my course name. For that course, We do meet during some evenings for cooking. So we'll pick an apartment, we'll get together, and we'll all bring something together to the meal to make a typical Parisian meal. A glass of wine, a bottle of wine or two to top off our meal, and enjoy it as a European would. I do have one weekend planned that I'm very excited about. We're nurses. We have to go visit Florence Nightingale, that is. Florence at this point still has a museum in London. It is in jeopardy of closing. So I'm hoping that that is not the case by the time we get there that next summer, that we will be able to take the Channel on over, visit Florence Nightingale's museum, perhaps with the whole weekend in London, spend some time in the Science Museum in central London, and also the Medical Museum in the, I think it's the Great London, Great Ormond Street Hospital in London. And then of course, during the evenings on that weekend, you do have free time to perhaps travel up to the Harry Potter studio tour, perhaps maybe do one of the evening street walking tours for Sherlock or Jack the Ripper, or even Harry Potter as well. So you'll have free time that weekend to sort of enjoy those things from your own teenage years that we all sort of grew to love as part of pop culture. Other than that, that's my only weekends that I have anything planned. So 5 of the weekends will be yours to traipse about Europe. And I fully, express that you do that, that you have the extra funds available to you to do that. It's such a great opportunity. And travel, within Europe will give you such a large world perspective for your future nursing careers. And I just think that helps you culturally and humanitarily. So that's it for me. I'm sorry. There will be some readings on Moodle. So I do recommend either a laptop or an iPad come with you. Just, some light readings, journal articles that will sort of touch on some of the topics we're talking about. And there may be a quiz or two, and I do expect journaling throughout the time that we're there.
Thank you, Dr. Tomplay.
Sure.
And Dr. Lee, if you could share all your exciting news.
Well, I'll try to go quickly because I see we're at almost, I think, about 38 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't want to keep students too long, but I'll reiterate mostly what was already said. I won't generally have students do anything in the evening. I think last time we went, we only met a couple of nights to go to the symphony. We heard Beethoven's Ninth, which was quite wonderful. Same, we'll probably go to the opera one time at the amazing Opéra Garnier, which is an architectural wonder in and of itself. Amazing that it's still a working theater. With me, I rarely have students meet me on Friday. I think there was only twice maybe that we did something in the morning, like Professor Young mentioned, but I really want students to travel, similar to what Dr. Tomplay was saying, and to have the weekends to go other places, to go to London, to go to Amsterdam, to make these forays if they're interested. In terms of assignments, a couple of short essays similar to what was already described, and a couple of presentations, including one in front of a work of art in which you pretend to be me and give a little tour of a work that you will research. Last time that was a big hit, even though students got very nervous. It ended up being one of their favorites about the program. So I think that's it. No exams, just the same kind of really intense, immersive attendance and discussion and presentness that Dr. Seeger was describing. That's what it's all about for me, joining us wherever we're going and being active once we're there.
Awesome. Can I go? Unfortunately, I have to stay in the office. So if you don't mind, Dr. Lee, if you could put up the PowerPoint one last time. And I just want to kind of go through it briefly so that students, this here, of course, these are some of the wonderful sites that you're going to see. And we've also provided you with a map that you can spend some time looking at if you decide to do so. You will be located, usually the apartments that you stay in are usually in the anywhere from the 13th through the 50th arrondissement. I think that hasn't changed, but it depends upon what's available. If you could do the next slide. We have other study abroad opportunities beyond our faculty-led programs. I'm not going to go into details about that for this one, but naturally you can read it on your own, just to, inform you that there are many things that you can do as a student and traveling abroad. And it's not just about faculty led, although we strongly encourage you to travel with our faculty because they are so exceptional. If you go to the next slide. We are planning to have some panel discussions in the fall where our student alumni will participate in a similar format to this. But what they're going to do is they're going to share their experiences as a student, because you want to hear from your faculty, but you also want to hear from students who've had those experiences as well. So we are going to be planning some, so just kind of keep an eye out for those dates and times, and we might be doing some recordings similar to this as well, so that you can always view it at your leisure as well. Next slide. We also, and I see here, it shows here, but we're not sure that the link will work through this particular recording, but we do have a video that's located on YouTube, and it will also, the link will be provided on our website as well, where we have some of our alumni that shared their experiences abroad. It's a beautiful video that my past graduate assistants worked on. I love it. I encourage you to view it. If you can't view it through this particular recording, it will be available to you on our website. And then that's me. So if you do have any questions, you can contact me. There is my contact information there. One thing I wanted to mention too, with our faculty, you can easily communicate with them as well now, because our email addresses are so easy now. It's our first name dot last name @ louisiana.edu. So if you want to speak with any of the faculty that have shared their experiences with you today, it's very easy for you to email them in that way. Don't hesitate to contact my office should you have questions. Right now, right now we're still kind of in that virtual meeting format versus meeting in person. Things may change in the future. Just give me a call and inquire with me, and I can always give you the updates about how we're releasing the information to the students in reference to meeting with them. So if our faculty have anything else they'd like to share, I welcome you to do so. I thank you from the bottom of my heart that you were able to spend some time with us to do this and let our students know how wonderful our France faculty-led program is. Thank you, and we hope to hear from you.